you're like, bugger, I should have spoken more around the trauma response and what's causing trauma, because I kind of said, oh, well, how much of this unhealed trauma that we all have from past relationships, from childhood, from whatever happened in your childhood, are we bringing into our relationships that's causing this tension that leads to possible separation?
And what I'm seeing is a lot of trauma from childhood, particularly, and it's not just childhood. We touched on media trauma, which is drip fed to us to create the fear, to create the compliance. Because when we fear losing something, or we fear being alienated from the tribe, then we become more compliant. So we become more like we're wanting to bond with the tribe more, and especially when we're injured. So this is where the poisons come in, and I speak quite openly about alcohol, tobacco, and you would ask, or what's the business model with separating men and women and families? Well, the family court is incredibly busy right now, which is actually just a bank, and it's transactions. Yeah, and they're business transactions. They're not, they're not decisions made for the family's best interests. They are purely transactional to that entity that is designed to create transactions, business transactions. So we've got to really wake up.
So welcome to a part 2 with my good friend Matt Castle. The last one, titled "What's Happened to Our Men," has and continues to be really well received, with really good feedback. So when we did hit stop, there was some real gold that started to come through. It's always the ways. Hence why we're doing part 2, to let you guys hear the conversation that Matt and I had post the big red stop button. So yeah, here goes. I'm going to hand the mic over to Matt. So a little bit of a backstory. You're going to have to listen to part 1, but I'll give you a little bit of a who is Matt. I met Matt because he does amazing breathwork sessions down here in the Coromandel. And he's also a men's coach. So he helps men before separation, because that's the whole objective, is to try to really preserve, especially when kids are involved. So that's what Matt gets up to, holding beautiful spaces so men can have conversation with each other, and really find space that there isn't in this big bad world that we're making better. So there we go. That's Matt. I'm going to hand you over to continue this conversation. And so basically, to lead you in, you were like, bugger, I should have spoken more around the trauma response and what's causing trauma, because I kind of said, oh, well, how much of this unhealed trauma that we all have from past relationships, from childhood, from whatever happened in your childhood, are we bringing into our relationships that's causing this tension that leads to possible separation? And you were like, bugger, I could have talked into that more. So there we go. Mike's all yours.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for having me back on. Yeah, I enjoyed our chat the other day, and it was good to, have a voice for men and for women, for that in that matter, because it does affect both of us. And the reason why I was disappointed that I didn't talk into trauma more, because you mentioned trauma and safety, and you asked how that was, related to the separations that I'm seeing. And so I explained a little bit more. I went down the road of explaining about safety, because we are safety orientated. Our entire nervous system and and conscious and unconscious minds are designed for safety. And that led me into talking about how we bond with other men and women in the tribe or in the community or society or country or whatever it is that you call it. On a primal level, it's a tribal instinct that we have to mimic and copy others in the tribe in order to fit in. And this has been weaponized and it's been used against us. So how the trauma relates to that, I mean, rightly so, we actually have separated the two because they are two very big conversations to have. They're two very big subjects to unpack, and we couldn't do it even if we tried in an hour-long podcast, to be fair. Because so the trauma side of things, right, the nervous system, what I've learned about the nervous system is it's like antennas. We are walking, talking antennas, and our antennas, just like a crayfish. I don't know if you guys have seen crayfish, if anybody has an experience with that. That's just, I'm a diver, so that's an analogy that I'll use. They use their antennas to touch around, so they're moving around until they feel something that they don't, that wasn't there before, particularly, and they use that with their eyesight, so all of the senses combined. And when they feel the diver's hand, boof, they go back into the rock. And they're very, very sensitive, very sensitive. You only have to touch the very tip of it. And this is how sensitive our nervous system actually is to our environment. And it's there for our safety, and it's there to help us to recognize the frequency of the room or the frequency of those around us. And this is why they call family, because the Latin word, or where it originated from, is familiar. So all it is like the English language is basically a whole lot of these other meanings or these other interpretations that have been bastardized into this Babel type language that we have, like there's 3 or 4 different meanings to every word. So we have no idea of context of the words that we are speaking. And on a physiological level, which we may get into a little bit later, that has a huge impact on the unconscious mind. And again, on our flesh, our cells have memory. And I think you mentioned Zach Bush talking about this, which I've heard him explain that before too. So the cellular structure has memory. It memorizes the vibrational frequency of the familiar pattern in our environment, so that we can survive, so that we can mimic and copy our environment. You've seen this with animals. Animals can change the color of their skin, reptiles, etc. Dogs will mimic and copy certain behaviors. Cats will mimic and copy certain behaviors. So it's not just us, it's the whole animal kingdom. It's the nervous system. I would say warm-blooded animals. I couldn't talk too far into that. But the animals and mammals, warm-blooded, they have the sensory. I think most do, even birds have the sensory, and they're cold-blooded. But I guess what I'm leading to in terms of the human nature or mankind nature is that our nervous system is storing these shock treatments, because these shock treatments are like what we call significant emotional events. Right? Emotions are basically energy in motion. They're actually not supposed to be stored. The energy is supposed to have a continuum. So, for example, there's almost like a kink in the hose. All right, you kink the hose, there's a build-up. If there's enough pressure, if you keep pumping the water, the hose is going to explode. And this is what we see with trauma. And when someone triggers the response, what's happening is there's the familiar vibrational frequency, and it's just like, and this is getting pretty technical for a lot of people, I know, but it's just like our phones are decoding the reality of a frequency that is around us all the time. When you hop on your phone and you watch a video, you're watching this video, that is coming from a frequency of light that's all around us all the time. So our nervous system is actually taking in these frequencies, and whatever it is that you're watching. So, for example, symbols have a very strong frequency, and the mind and the nervous system combined with that. And this is why we see artificial entities having these particular um, uh, symbols for, they call it a logo in commerce, but it's actually symbolism, and it binds with our nervous system and with our flesh. So what we see is, so to unpack trauma, I mean, how far do you go? The thing is, like you asked me in relation to, in the last podcast, you asked me in relation to the separations that I'm seeing. So I talk to hundreds of guys per week. They don't all work with me, but I have lengthy conversations with them until they do. And we unpack what's been going on. So they'll basically explain to me their situation. Sometimes I'll dig deeper into the childhood, and then also getting a little bit of a story, a bit of a picture, building a picture of the partner's life as well, and what she's trying to create. And it's really interesting because when you talk to hundreds of guys per week, that I've been doing now for nearly 12 months in this particular fashion, you really start to build a picture out of the familiar patterns that you're seeing. And what I'm seeing is a lot of trauma from childhood, particularly, and it's not just childhood. We touched on media trauma, which is drip fed to us to create the fear, to create the compliance. Because when we fear losing something, or we fear being alienated from the tribe, then we become more compliant. So we become more like we're wanting to bond with the tribe more, and especially when we're injured. So this is where the poisons come in, and I speak quite openly about alcohol, tobacco, all the chemicals, even in our washing washing liquids and things. There's there's a lot of different chemicals in there. We could spend a lot of time on that, but I won't. That have caused the fertility to drop. And I actually genuinely would ask the question, rather than talking about my beliefs, is, are we endangered? Is mankind actually an endangered species? Because the global population is actually plummeting. And why is this? It's actually due to social factors in regards to this trauma and conditioning that I talk about. Because people, like, what is the greatest contraception? The greatest contraception would be to actually have people believe that having children is not in their well-being, or not, it's too stressful, or it's too expensive, or my life, I'm happy without children. Like, my happiness is more important than actually continuing my genetic bloodline. All of these beliefs are actually non-organic, and they've come from the social conditioning, from media, from state education systems and things, with women working a lot more, wanting to have careers and have control of their lives, and as a result, losing a lot of their femininity and their ability to surrender to the masculine. And therefore, there's this polarity shift. We haven't got the polarity that we once did. And that also creates a problem with men becoming more feminine to actually try and get the attention of the female. Like, we are, like, we both play our roles in repopulating, but we have this intrinsic value, or this innate, I call it the innate design, both men and women, in order to actually procreate. And it's all been muddled and it's messed with. And so women have become more masculine with going out and working and having to raise children on their own. And then men have become more feminine to try and bond with the feminine in order to try and procreate, to have his genetic line continue. So there's a huge amount to unpack in terms of what is the cause of this. And when you go far enough back, it's this drip fed trauma. For example, and I touched on it before, what I'm seeing with men and women that are going through separation is that, from the woman's point of view, she's found a man that she feels safe with, that she would like to have children with. His genetics and his character fit what she believes she would like her offspring to, look, think, act like, to become. And what happens is, subconsciously and unconsciously, she often tries to recreate the father figure in her life, or at least try and recreate what she would like her father figure to have been. And this is all scrambled as well. So again, there's so many layers to it. It's been scrambled because what she believes that she wants from a man. And I've spoken to a women's coach actually that I follow, that follows me, and I was in contact with her. She said that the one thing working with women that she's noticing is that women are actually saying, when asked, what is it that you want in a man, they're actually describing a woman. So what we're, yeah, so what we've got is we've got men actually becoming feminine in order to bond with the feminine. And then eventually she gets the ick. She's like, I'm not interested in this guy because he's too feminine. So we've got this whole, our antennas have been completely scrambled. And what our innate design is asking for, our unconscious mind is actually fighting with that. And this is where a lot of the stress, inflammation, and confusion and compliance is coming from. Because people are like, our innate receptors are completely scrambled. And the information that we're receiving is going completely against what our innate design wants. And what I'm hearing from, and I mean, to not go too far into how we work with men, but the emotional restoration is always number one, because what happens is, because when all of this, all of our innate features or functions are all scrambled, is that our emotions become out of tune, out of whack, because of the trauma that has come through, fear of being left out by the tribe, which, all of the child Disney characters, for example, Lion King, the Lion King, the father, Simba, I think, is the dad. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long time. He fell to his death, and a lot of these, and the child witnessed it. And a lot of these programs, Monsters Inc., they're banking the energy of the child being scared, and it's made into this, it's made into this, this kids program where children are watching it, and in actual fact, they're filling their trauma, their nervous system with trauma, because losing a parent is probably the scariest thing for a child, because it creates vulnerability in the wild, in the real world. They're so small. And then if you look at, the first year of school, the first day of school, imagine going to school with, a class of 30 different people that you've never met. They're all complete strangers. And then the teacher you might have met once or twice. And then you're told to go and sit with all these kids that are all staring at you and looking at you and judging you. That fear in that nervous system, that creates a compliant man. And we've known for a long time that, particularly with boys, that we learn very differently. And so when we're sitting there and we're being judged constantly, we're losing our edge, we're losing our ability to lead, we're losing our ability to actually be in our masculine. And this is being killed from day one in the regular schooling system, because of the way we're sitting, the hypnosis that is actually going unnoticed, sitting down, looking directly at a teacher, taller than you, and all of the like the tribe, the tribal atmosphere, the tribal aspect, is all the other children are sitting there compliant too. So we're actually losing our ability to lead, and then going into manhood. Like, look at the epidemic of young teenage boys committing suicide, and guys going through separation. There's a huge amount of suicide, which is all related back to this early childhood trauma.
Yeah, the thing that I'm because like my son, so he's 18, he's in the Gold Coast at the moment, and he was in Melbourne before that, and he's like, holy shit, like the amount of cocaine, Jesus, like that's another whole subject. It's just like,
Yeah,
he's
the
just like,
substance.
man, just how
Yeah,
it's so bad. It's
it's
so,
so
you get, there's,
available.
it's
Yeah.
just, there's coke bags like on the ground, and
Mm.
oh, he's like, that's pretty next level. And that's just, that's at 9 o'clock in the morning. He's like, just witnessed, like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the substance, like that's put there too. Look, let's be honest. How can you shut down the entire planet and put all this
Yeah.
legislation into, something that has never been proven to exist, um, and to protect, the vulnerable, or to protect all of us? I call it fake safety, because in order for safety to be real, you actually need a real threat. And with manufactured threat that we see a lot, for that fear narrative, for that trauma narrative to create compliance, the substance really is a huge part of the global elites ruling ingredients, I will say. Because if you could get 50% of viewers in a movie theater to um, completely forget what was played on the screen, the movie, based on a 3-minute hypnosis played in the prequel and the lead up, and whatever you call them, the pre advertising skits that they have, the reels. Then, and this is done, Darren Brown. Darren Brown is a mentalist in the UK, very well known, very, very clever. He was able to get, think about 30 odd people to completely forget the movie that they watched. So, if you could get 50% of the population to do that, what they've found is if they were drinking coffee, alcohol, eating chocolate or junk food, then you could increase that to somewhere around the 80% mark, right? So these substances are there for a reason, because, it's a problem, reaction, solution environment, which is, it's sales. It's basically a big sales environment. And, because if we didn't have these problems, then we wouldn't need such a large safety model, if that makes sense. I mean, for example, the road workers. The road workers in the last 2 years have gone from wearing mufti to wearing full orange suits, with hard hats, even the flap on the back to keep them out of the sun. And what we know now is that blocking the sun is the worst thing you can do for your health. So now we're
Yeah,
seeing,
that's my next podcast.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, it's,
blue light in
we,
classrooms, and
yeah,
my goodness, it's like this cocktail, isn't it? It's like,
yeah.
whoa.
And it all relates back to the control mechanism, because
Mm.
if we are unhealthy, then we are more likely to, or if we're sick
Mm.
and diseased, we're more likely to bond with the larger group, which helps when media can give you the interpretation that it is the majority. So watching the TV screen is giving your unconscious mind and your nervous system the belief that it is the majority. If you're watching a murder or sexual assault on TV, your body is actually experiencing that trauma. It's like having the VR headset. Your
Mm.
body is actually experiencing that. And this is, you know, women tend to really enjoy watching scary thrillers and horrors and things a lot, because it stimulates their emotional state, it stimulates their nervous system.
Because I
But
did go through a stage of really enjoying. I was like, this is back before I woke up. But yeah, it was like always thrillers. And then the last, like my son, he watched heaps of it. I couldn't, because once you put something on and you're like, what are they trying to say? What are they trying to say? And I just can't. And he's like, geez, mum, can you just like stop it? And I'm like, well, I can't, because look. But then it got to the point, I think the last thing he put on before he was over it too, it was just the like people having couples arguing, and I'm
Mm,
like, this is awful. I'm like, I was like, I can't. This is and that was just a normal run of the mill. I was like,
mm.
but why would you? I said, well, why would you want to listen to that? Like, that's what I don't want. Like, I don't ever want that. So why is that like something that you're going to sit and listen to? That's just madness.
Yeah, so, and this leads me back into the relationships, because that's kind of where I'm focused at the moment, largely because um, I, so anonymously, there was a man that we are working with at the moment in our group, and he said that his wife was at the end of their relationship when she was obviously planning her exit. Um, that she was terrified of him. She was terrified that he was going to like physically assault her and all this sort of thing. And he's like, I don't know where this came from. I've never, I've never been physical with her. Yeah, we've had arguments, but I've never threatened her and like made her feel unsafe in that way. And so what's happening is women are actually experiencing these traumatic events. We call them significant emotional events because, again, it's like a shockwave through the nervous system, and the nervous system is storing that frequency in order to keep you safe at a later date. So as soon as she feels unsafe, when she's feeling like she's exiting the relationship, she's going to start to feel unsafe because of how he may react or whatever. Um, and so that nervous system, or that familiar vibration, that familiar frequency starts coming out. So all of a sudden there's this heightened fear. And this is the same with men too, but I'm relating it back to what I'm seeing with the men and women separating. Be careful what you're watching, because it's designed to create this. This has been designed, and I know a lot of people don't entertain that idea, that notion, but it is far too coincidental to be looking around at what is going on now, all the separations. And I read about this stuff back in 2017. There was somebody that was blowing the lid on that. And I started reading into it, and I was like, nah, surely not. And I thought, well, because I know this is happening, it's not going to happen to me. But the thing is the ignorance of a lot of people is that we think that we can't be hypnotized because I know what's going on, or I know what they're doing, or whatever. But if you don't understand how it actually works, then you are even easier to hypnotize. Yeah, because you just think that it can't happen to me, and that makes you more of a target because you're not aware of where it's coming from. So yeah, it's trauma. Trauma is being drip fed for a reason. It's a large scale business model, and you would ask, or what's the business model with separating men and women and families? Well, the family court is incredibly busy right now, which is actually just a bank, you know, and there's transactions. Yeah, and they're business transactions. They're not, you know, they're not decisions made for the family's best interests. They are purely transactional to that entity that is designed to create transactions, business transactions. So we've got to really wake up. We've got to really start talking about this, and we've got to realize that, like, where's this coming from, and is it actually my partner that's causing this trauma? Because I think that's a big thing with women too when they're leaving, because they are the reason I'm talking about women. It's not because I'm picking on them, it's because they're 90% the initiators of divorce. Probably more than that, the guys that I speak to, it's probably 99%. That's not to say that's overall, but the guys that I'm speaking to, she's initiating. And from what I can see, she's initiating because she's lost that attraction to him, because there's no polarity, because society's been telling this man that he needs to be more sensitive, and he needs to be, um, more compliant to women in a lot of ways. And I think women test us. They test a man for his strength emotionally, and in the beginning, it always works out all right because they're younger and he's not thinking about that and all the rest of it. But as the relationship goes along, and all of the trauma and all that sort of thing builds up, then they get to a point where that polarity has completely disappeared, and he's over catering, he's overextending himself towards trying to fix things and trying to attract her, or trying to chase her, trying to get her back, which pushes her away even more. So there's a whole lot of dynamics that actually lead to that point as well. And yeah, so is it actually my partner that I feel is causing my trauma, or is it the environment outside of that? And there's a whole lot to unpack there as
Yeah.
well. But what happens is then we see the trauma bond, where does a lot of the women that separate, they go straight to authorities to ask for protection from this man who really was just trying to love his woman and provide for his family. And all of a sudden she's gone off with another man, or she's gone to do gone to just wanted some space because she's feeling smothered and she's feeling unsafe and all that sort of thing, which that's cool. I completely understand where that's coming from and why that's happening, but he doesn't, and nor does she. In a lot of cases she believes that it's him, but actually she's going to, this is the trauma bond, and going back to the place that has caused the trauma and the fear in the first place, for help. And this is the business model, this is the sales model, and it's very, very well designed, it's very clever, it's very, like, this has been studied for a long time, our psychology and our nervous system. And so we really need to just unpack this, because children need mum and dad, and women need men, and many will disagree, but women need healthy men,
Yeah.
and and they have a big role to play in actually keeping that man healthy. And men need to be healthy and strong, and they need to bond with other men to sharpen their edges, to ensure that they are strong enough to lead and to hold their woman emotionally when she's in chaos and turmoil, so that he doesn't entertain that and become and match her frequency, and just end up, two storms colliding rather than just the mountain and the wind, you know. Um, so yeah, there's solution, and I think that's how we ended last time was, you
Yeah.
know, get help, find out what is going on with the behaviors, what's causing these behaviors, and what's causing the trauma in the nervous system, and that fear. Where's that fear coming from? So that we can really heal you emotionally, and so that the children can, so you can all be happy. Because there's a whole nother thing. I don't know. Do you want me to go into like life after divorce as well?
We've completely lost you into the sunshine.
Uh,
But when
do you want to cut me
conversations start flowing, it's like it's the value in the conversation, and we know how beautiful Matt is.
Yeah, and once I get going, I'm happy
And
to
that's why
share.
I didn't want to stop. I was like,
Yeah,
it's about the words. It's like it's not about. And that's another whole topic in itself.
yeah.
um, but yeah, it was funny. Like, so we'll leave you as you are, and it's beautiful. You've got these beautiful auras of light. uh, yeah, it was funny because is when I recorded the last episode, and I did share this with Matt. It was, yeah, it really brought up some stuff for me, and because when we put the mic down, as I said, um, Matt said, MK Ultra, and I was just like, fuck, like, I don't want to swear, sorry, come out. Um, and of course, I get on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, like it was so dark, and it was like, and it really, really threw me. I was like, oh no, like, what have I opened here? Like, and that, yeah, and actually, like, for almost a week, I was like, oh my goodness, like, what have I, because it's we can all walk around, and especially us people that you know are kind of creating this new world, and we're doing our breath work, and we're doing our meditation, and we're finding our people, but at the end of the day, like, still want to I still want to be able to communicate and but not in a way of like da, 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 of ranting and oh my god, I can't believe you're blah, 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 blah. But I still, that's why I love these conversations, and we can all kind of like keep our mouths shut. But I think it's the way that you talk to people, Matt, and the way that I talk to people, and the way that we are all part of the possibility of change. It's like the ripple effect, right? We've just, like, for me, closing down that week after and going, oh, it's too hard, I can't, and going, I can't do this. Well, that's why I'm back here doing round two, part two, because it was like, isn't it interesting? Something I was like, it's too hard, I don't know, has actually been so well received. So it's interesting. That was just a whole interesting thing that happened. Um, so yeah, I just want to share that, and I shared it on my story when I put it up, because I just want to be really authentic, and not want to be. I am like, I'm not going to hide behind anything, and I just want this world to be a better place. Like,
And this is
and
why,
whether that's possible or not,
yeah,
hey, can only but contribute to something better and healthier, right?
and this is why we need each other, and this is also why we need to support others that are speaking, because it is very isolating when you start speaking about things that trigger people. And again, this relates back to the relationships as well, because as soon as you start triggering a partner, they think that you're responsible for the abuse or whatever, but actually those are triggers that were put there a long time ago, and we can't keep blaming people that are triggering us, because those triggers are actually, they've been put there by someone else, by something else, by this very cleverly designed, um, well, it's a weapon of mass destruction, really. It's the unseen, it's the unconscious, and yeah, we need to actually support each other to get through this, because you know we can't leave anybody behind. Even the people that are working in for these artificial entities that this is coming from, like, those people need compassion as well, because they are really just trying to get by in this world.
Yeah.
Um, but we must keep speaking our truth. That is the main thing, and eventually we will outgrow it. When enough people start getting together and actually going, wow, yeah, that makes sense, and I'm seeing that from my life, and I can relate it to my life. So yeah, it's really great to start talking about this. And like I say, it is very isolating at times. But yeah, and then there's the ongoing as well. Like, how do we heal from this? That is
Yeah.
such a huge subject, and a huge, like, we're in the trenches now. But then there's going to be bodies left all lying all over the place. There's injuries everywhere. We're all injured, and I shouldn't laugh, but it's just the analogy I use, I guess. We need to start developing the knowledge and the awareness and the capabilities to nurse those people with the wounds back into um, a functional state. We are so far from, we are so dysfunctional as a society, and with the separation, after the separation, we've been taught, and I talked about how the conditioning goes against our innate design. We've been taught that our happiness is better than more important than our family or our children or whatever. We go out into the world, it's all great. We get a new partner, everything's fantastic. A couple of years later, after the honeymoon phase, all of a sudden you're back to square one. Only now it's even worse, because what I'm seeing with guys that have been through separation already, and they're getting back to me with a shorter term relationship problems and dynamics that they're having trouble with, is that largely, and this is just based on what I'm seeing. So largely, a man, and this is not blanket, of course, this is just what I'm seeing, but I don't believe that a man will love a woman the same as the father of her children. And I think this is really brutally honest, and it's
Yeah,
really
that's huge.
that is a very triggering thing for me to say. But I'm seeing it, and I think it's not with everybody, of course, but what we're seeing is that when uh, when the honeymoon phase is over, that there is no longer that real bond from wanting to stay together for the children, for the grandchildren, and for the rest of the stuff that holds together, because now you've got the dynamics of the blended family as well, which is till death do you part. The blended families. The only other option is to stay on your own, which I'm also seeing. So that's another layer as well, is what's happening to our women. What after divorce? Are they staying single? You know, there's an epidemic of single people now, and I think particularly women over the age of 50, they kind of prefer to be on their own. But is that because we haven't actually realized this whole framework around where this trauma came from, and the fact that, you know, what women think that they want is not necessarily what they really need, like what they need from their heart, what they need from their innate design. What does their innate design need, you know? And so it's going to take quite some time to build out of this, and it just comes from strengthening men and women, and having that understanding of where these behaviors are actually coming from. So that's the big cleanup job
Mm.
that we're going through now. These emotional events that have built up in the nervous system, they carry on after separation too. And unfortunately, the bond that goes through a man and a woman when they have children, that gets broken. It's just not the same when you go forward, when you go on. And that could be just speaking from my perspective, what I'm seeing and things like that. Because I know people that have blended families, and they're absolutely amazing, beautiful, beautiful, loving families. I do know one or two of those as well. So, you know, it's not a blanket. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that they, you know, I'm aware because yeah, I'm by myself and I've been through the trenches and I've been through the courts and as you Matt, and uh yeah, and I've got to be honest and say, I always say, oh my god, it's so much easier by yourself because it kind of is, you know, you don't have to like deal with the actually even spoke about this yesterday. We've got an amazing sauna down here, sauna by the sea. Gotta share. It's just amazing. And there's like a group of us 6 women all sitting in there. It's like the conversations are awesome. And yeah, we were just talking, well, talk about all sorts of things, but yeah, that whole it is. I'm sure this came up yesterday about I think I said, oh, I'm all good because I've got no one. No, I think I was walking into the ocean in between the sauna, uh, and I was just, I've got no one to trigger me. I'm all good, you know, because it is. It's like, oh my goodness, my nervous system has this massive opportunity to kind of like just because it's I've got less opportunities to be either triggered by my son because he's overseas or a partner, you know, and I'm kind of like, oh, it is, and yeah, so I do put my hand up and say of course, but on the flip side of that is that, you know, it's a little bit sad that I'm like oh, why didn't you go to so and so's for dinner? I'm like, oh, I've got no one to go with, you know,
Mm.
or and the other thing is I know that the level of growth, because I'm like in this lifetime to like let's do the healing, like let's just do it. And like last on Saturday I had this amazing um akashic reading meditation come through that completely flipped my world upside down around my birth. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been writing through that this week. And coming back to the next level of growth, I am aware that it is through our relationships, whether it's our children or whether it's our, you know, the people who actually grow in that relationship and with that relationship are the people who do actually have that opportunity to evolve and to do the maximum healing. I I fully acknowledge that, and I'm up for, like, especially, with my son, to, like, okay, why does he trigger me? Like, let's work out what these dynamics are. And I think that, we do need, it is all too easy to get the divorce too, but how, as a human species, like, moving forward and evolving into this next level of human,
Mm.
that we do have to do the work, and it is all too easy too, but it's not all too easy, it's awful. But
Mm.
yeah, but I want to acknowledge that, and from because there is two of us on this podcast, so it's nice to, like,
Yeah.
because I've been through all sorts of awful, shitty shit.
And I'd like to
And
acknowledge that too, Belinda, because you know, we are like so much compassion for, particularly for people that have not been able to move on after separation or after having children and raising children on their own, whether it's not because of any lack, it's because of that has been more comfortable for them. But the thing is we're kind of, I don't like using the term victims, but we're children of this age where absolute lunacy took place. Like, as we awaken and we start looking around at the things that we've normalized, it isn't it is insane. It's actually insane. We have clinically insane people uh, writing scripture for company policy. We have I've done a post just recently on empathy. So the logical mind is responsible for empathy and insight. The unconscious mind is responsible for the emotional state. And so what happens is when we are constantly triggered into that emotional state, we're walking around on the unconscious behaviors. And this is how the mind control is expanded, because of the substance actually shutting down the prefrontal cortex, the logical mind. So we have a society of absolute uh, psychopaths. Because the definition of a psychopath is one who has no empathy. And if the frontal lobe is not in activation, or if it's inactive, then by clinical definition you are a psychopath, right? You have no empathy because you're operating on a different part of the brain. So this is the state of the world. And so much compassion to those. I've remained on my own as well, because I've had to figure out what the hell is going on. Like, I felt like I was almost on a sled sliding through the forest, or like a runaway cart, and I'm looking around trying to plan how I'm going to take control of my life, of this cart that I'm on, because I'm looking around and I'm seeing this old world that's just crumbling, and people that are struggling, and I'm really just trying to find, you know, like anybody, find out how it is that we are really supposed to live. What is the healthy way to live, and what's the healthy way to get through this? And so,
yeah,
so much compassion for those of us that have remained on their own, going into, that second part of our life, from sort of your middle age, whatever. I'm 40. I guess that's middle age. I feel like there's been a huge amount of growth and maturity happen over the last 12 to probably 12 months to
mm,
3 or 4 years, since my separation. There's been a huge amount of awakening and growth and knowledge. So, we are the children of this insanity. So it's a very special time, and we need not to be too hard on ourselves, because of, the bigger picture. The big picture is that we are all just cleaning ourselves up. We're all on this battlefield. Really, we're still in the trenches, and there's bodies lying everywhere. And there's more bodies dropping, to figuratively
yeah,
speaking, and we've got to try and get these injured to first realize, because the injured, you've got to remember, they're still armed and they're firing off all these bullets at everybody, at their own people. And I use this analogy just because it really suits, it fits well with the psychology of where we're at, and so people are getting triggered by their own people and they're firing off at their own people, and it's very dangerous because they can fire off and start accusing of these people of things that just create a whole nother business model that just puts you straight back into the business model. So we've really got to understand where this where this weapon is actually coming from, where it's actually affecting us. How it's affecting us is pretty obvious, but getting a bit deeper as to where it's coming from, and it can really change the dynamics of a relationship, I believe, once you actually realize what is causing this traumatic this trauma, and then the traumatic response, or that the trigger, rather than firing our weapons at our loved ones, we can realize that, well, actually, the enemy's over there. They're not the ones that put me into this position. So yeah.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? It's huge, but it's like, it's just, once you see, you can't unsee, and it's just the more people that can see. And gosh, like, another thing I'd really like to talk on is the whole sovereignty and becoming sovereign. And I've got a couple of friends of mine that have, and that's another whole, because that's starting to chip. That's the big chip. If you can start, that's another massive. Because how do you get yourself out of this?
Well,
This
my take,
system
yeah, look, sorry to interrupt, but my take I'll keep very short on that. I've dived very deep into that, and
that you have.
that affected my children, and so I guess the main point, and the reason I've gone into all of this trauma and the this hidden weapon that we're not seeing, because none of that matters if we can't self-determine. We all have to regain control of our frontal lobe, regain empathy and insight, and start functioning as God intended us to function. And I'm not religious, but I do believe that there is a creator, and that there is actually a base model to this intensely complex frequency based reality that we're decoding on a scientific level, on a physiological level. So the sovereignty side of things, I think, is it's hopeless without us actually being able to self-determine. Because if we have people that are snorting cocaine, doing meth, drinking copious amounts of alcohol, driving with no number plates, and not having any responsibility, then we're going to have to check that. We're going to have some sort of check and balance in place to make sure that we don't have people doing that, because that is putting life at risk, which is the model that we've currently got. The business model is actually putting life at risk. So you can't replace one thing with another thing that's putting life at risk. You know what I mean? So we've got to learn to self-determine. It's going to be generational, and having some knowledge of who you are and who you're not, or your artificial straw man, so they call it. Having some knowledge around that is great, but I would always caution people about running into, cutting the walls down there, because I think there's a lot more growth for other people yet before there's a tipping point in terms of that actually coming back into our normal reality, because everything is contract and commerce, but contract is not being adhered to. And while the other party is ignoring contract, then life becomes threatened. So we need to tiptoe around that, and we need to actually just preserve life as best we can. So that's kind of my take, and that's pretty much as far as I'd go with that.
Yeah, because that's just another for me, if I'm looking, like, it's just like, it was just too much information for me. I'm just like, let's just unpack my own existence first, like, as a, all the stuff I've been through, and let's just sort all my kinks out.
Mm,
Because I want to feel like, for me, like, everything, I just want to feel great. And because, you've really got to sort yourself out first to be of service. Like, otherwise there's no point. And that's what I'm here for. Like, let's just, sleep better, feel better, engage better, and then just to be better in myself. So that's really what it comes back to. And I'm always on that course of self betterment.
nice. Yeah. And then, of course,
uh,
others see that in the tribe, and by you speaking
yeah.
about this with your audience, others have the opportunity then as well to start to embody that change as well, and that's where the self determination comes in. Clean and healthy, we can
Mm.
self determine, and then that sovereignty side of things, or at least contract, will come into play. But as long as we have the child mind playing out on a daily basis, which is, like I said, the unconscious mind, then we are infants of unsound mind, and we need someone else to do it for us. So first we take care of the physiology, and we take care of our health and well-being to regain control of our minds, to be able to self-determine, and then we can start learning and teaching the scripture that we all need to know to to work as I think we were intended to work again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
cool.
Thanks, Matt. You've got the most beautiful rainbow.
Oh, is it?
It's
Oh, fantastic.
stunning.
I can't
It's
see
so
because
beautiful. You
my
get to
screen's
see
got
later. You'll be
yeah,
like, wow. It's like,
yeah, the sun's shining on the screen, so I can't really see much.
it's such a beautiful day today. It's just we tried to move Matt around like several corners before we started, and yeah. But that's what keeps it real, and I'm into that. It's like,
Beautiful.
I'm here for the real stuff, the real talk. So thanks, Matt, and
Thank you, Belinda.
yeah, that was awesome. So cool talk all day, right? And so I'll drop everything in the notes of how to get in touch with Matt. You're doing such amazing work, and
Thank you, and you.
and real just yeah, just as we mutually say, just keep going, right? Just keep going.
Well,
Um,
we talked a little bit about the round table meeting, and the thing is, like, I've lost all fear. I've had to face my demons. I've had to face the darkness. Things that I've said and done in the past that have developed this character that people potentially didn't like, or whatever. Whatever it is that I've been hiding from. And I think that right now is a good time to just basically throw that out the window. Now that's the healing, is like, right, I'm good with that.
mm,
That's out in the light. And that's not going to stop us from sitting down and talking about the things that we need to talk about. And I would love to see men and women sitting around a round table and talking about this stuff, the hard conversations, and say, what do we actually need from each other to make this world strong? Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. Absolutely. We've just got to make a date.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got to find a premise as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're close. We're
Yeah,
close.
it'll come up. Oh,
Thank you,
beautiful.
Matt. Have a
Well,
great go into that in that sun.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you so much, and I will see you soon.
Yes,
And over and out from Curious. Bye.
beautiful. Thank you. Bye.